unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello and welcome. Happy Wednesday. It is Hump Day on The Last Show, and here's what you're going to learn on our program tonight. Scientists have just unearthed photos of our night sky from before satellites even existed, and they show mysterious streaking lights. Nothing weird or transient should have been in those photographs. So in about 15 minutes time, we'll dig in and ask, do these pictures give us evidence for UFOs in our past, or were they just nuclear tests? Then later in the hour, you know when you say you're on the same wavelength as someone, you don't mean that literally, but for couples close to each other, their heartbeats can literally sync up, like heart rate harmony. And we're gonna unravel and teach you about this weird psychological and physiological connection. And it's not just your heart, it can happen with your brain waves. Pretty cool stuff, but for now, we'd better jump in.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. If
you like certain kinds of movies, like horror or action or drama, you might have certain personality traits. At least that's according to science. It's science for your ear holes. It's the Rogerson Report. We are joined by Professor from York University, Jesse Rogerson, to give you all the science news that you probably are going to care about. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Hey, David. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, you sound really good. Did you get a new microphone?
I got this beautiful new mic. Thanks. Yeah, someone really cool recommended it to me.
It was me. Wow, really piercing behind the veil here. The boring parts of radio, microphones. The not so boring parts of radio, the fascinating science stories. Okay, I like dramas. I like comedies. I cry at pretty much every movie. Don't judge me. What does that say about me according to science?
I was actually just going to ask you that exact question. What kind of favorite movies do you have? And what, because there's some things that it might be able to tell. Now, the study they did here, before I get to what movies tell about you, David, is the study is they took 300 actually college kids in India. This is an Indian study, aged 20 to 23, but they're fluent in English. And they asked them basically, rank your favorite type of movie. And this is like adventure, drama, comedy, romance, horror, and mystery. So 6 types of movies. And then they ranked them, and then they also got them to do this personality test based on the big 5 personality traits, specifically extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, neuroticism, and openness to experiences. So
why is there one bad one in there? Neuroticism. Also, I feel like that one's me because I'm worried that it's me. Does that mean if you're worried about being neurotic, does that mean you're neurotic? That's a question for science.
They were just trying to control for you specifically in this study. That's what they were aiming to do. Yeah.
All right.
So they did this, and they found, first of all, David, anybody who said that they liked all kinds of movies, they immediately excluded from the study. So if you're like watching all of these kinds of movies, then you're not really helpful in this study.
That's like when you say, what kind of music do you like? I like everything. Shut up. Get out of here. You're not invited to our study.
There's definitely one type of music you don't listen to, and you're just lying about it, right? So for me, horror films are ones that I don't mind watching, but I really, really don't choose them for me. So I wouldn't watch all of these often. But anyway, what they found is that there are correlations that in the ranks that you give for types of movies versus your personality type, there's things that correlate. For example, adventure films goes with extroversion. And negative associations with conscientiousness and neuroticism. So if you're super into that neurotic side of yourself, you're probably not watching a lot of adventure films, like big action films, right?
So if I start watching like Indiana Jones and the Expendables and stuff, will it cure my neuroticism, or did this paper not find a causal link like that?
That is such a great question, talking about how science works. And no, there's no causation associated here. It's correlation between the two. One can tell you the other.
So I can't force myself to watch movies I don't like to become a better person.
Well, I would say is that the study does not answer that question, although that is a really interesting scientific question and one that could be explored if you set up your experiment properly. Just subject people to the movies they hate.
Let's do it at the commercial break. Okay, so adventure associated with more positive personality traits, extroversion.
You said you were into drama, And what?
Sci-fi is probably my number one, which I don't think they categorized here.
No,
but
they didn't.
But maybe drama. Yeah, that'd
Drama
be my
and comedy,
second.
right?
I like comedies. I don't actually love comedies, but I like them. I like them.
Here's an interesting conclusion that came from it is that there's no meaningful relationship from comedy watchers to personality types. So basically everybody watches comedy. But the thing that I found sort of what I suspect here is that there is a very large range of comedic style, right? And they didn't control for like slapstick versus punny versus like edgy, weird comedy. Like there's a wide range, political comedy, sort of offensive comedy, right? There's a ton of different types of comedies that I think would track with personality type, but they just said comedy. So I think that if you could get into the sort of subtleties of genre, you might find something. Overall, they found, yes, there's correlations between the big 5 personality types and the types of movies people choose. And there's some really interesting things to go look in after that. They actually even said this might be something that could be used for hiring practices and screening, suggesting like when you're doing a job interview, you ask them what type of movies they like, which I think is a dangerous precedent.
Yeah, and then like figuring out what your psychological traits are and then discriminating against you based on it. I don't know about that.
It sounds terrible. So the study did mention that, and I think that's just a crazy overreach, but it's an interesting study nonetheless.
All right. Well, I like drama best of the categories they looked at. I think that means that I am...
You're higher levels of conscientiousness and neuroticism, and you have lower levels of extroversion. Are you extroverted, David?
I'm a little bit, I'm a little extroverted.
A little bit.
I do
well,
talk
I like
to
to think
strangers
humans are not one-dimensional, right? We can have lots of personality traits.
All right, let's go to this next study. Kind of interesting that when I think of fertility rates, I usually associate them with age, maybe health, but not my current romantic status. But a new study finds there is a link between that and your fertility, which is kind of wild that like some social circumstance of your life can affect it. Or am I getting this all wrong?
Almost not. The distinction there is that it's not fertility rate, it's fertility desire. How much do you actually want to have kids, David? If you want to have kids...
I messed that one up. It's fine. What I said was, you said rate. I said desire.
And your romantic partner, your status, your Facebook status, you remember that? Your Facebook status can actually inform what you think about what you want. So what they did for this study is it's a really cool study because they took a bunch of people aged 20 to 49 years old and followed them over a very long period of time, 2009 to 2023. That's a very long period of time, years. And they followed them through their ups and downs of relationships. This was in Japan. And they asked them, as they were going through relationship changes, how did this affect whether or not they wanted kids? And so they categorized them by wanting kids, not sure, and not wanting kids. And they found that when you change your relationship status to not with someone, either not married or not cohabitating or just not in a relationship at all, there's actually a huge spike in changing your mind from wanting to being unsure. So just your relationship status actually affects, or at least correlates with, what you think you want out of life. And having kids is a huge decision. So the reason this is interesting is because it finds is that you might not actually have a clear picture of what you want until you've gotten into or out of a relationship, and it will affect that choice. So you want to be careful about making those hard decisions until you've had like all the facts about yourself, I think.
It's interesting. I'm just embarrassed that, this was the one article I didn't read and then I set it up wrong and whatever. Fine. Okay. Thank you for sharing it, Jesse. I look bad, but you know what? That's basically every minute of the show.
You always look good to me.
Thank you. When we come back, an article I did read, a short, easy to do intervention might help kids with ADHD manage some of the stresses they have in their life. This is easy to do. So if you know a kid with ADHD, you're going to want to stick around for this. It's the Rogerson Science Report, RSR, I said, with Jesse Rogerson, a professor at York University. We'll be back with him in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
In the 70s, 4 young women were found dead. For nearly 50 years, their cases went cold. I'm Nancy Hixt, a senior crime reporter for Global News. In the season finale of Crime Beat, I share how investigators uncovered shocking evidence of a serial killer and hear exclusive interviews with the killer's family. Listen to the full season of Crime Beat early and ad-free on Amazon Music by asking Alexa to play the podcast Crime Beat.
The Last Show with David Cooper, where we utilize non-linear reverse, inverse, backward thinking protocols. It sounds like this.
If you know a young person with ADHD, there's something that they can do, pretty simple, to help them manage stress. We're here with Jesse Rogerson, a professor at York University, to talk science news. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, exercise. Is it good for you? I hear the jury's out on that one, just like it is with smoking and alcohol.
Some doctors, I guess, say it, but I guess not all. No. Yes, of course, exercise is good for you for like cardiovascular health, for like just general health. But there's something deeper going on here. And this was all about adolescents that have ADHD. Now, there's been some work done on this for children, for young ones with ADHD. But this study was saying, okay, when a young person has ADHD and moves into that adolescent portion of their life, they're hit with so much more that's going on. There's your school life, social world, there's social media. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's happening in that transition period. They're more prone to anxiety, depression. How do we intervene with these young people with ADHD that's characterized by like inattentiveness and like hyperactivity to bring their stress levels down, bring their anxiety levels down, and sort of biologically work on their cortisol levels, which goes with stress. So what this study did was say, okay, let's do an intervention with physical activity, but on the short term. So they took 2 groups of students, both had ADHD. They did one group of those students do a physical activity twice a week for 3 weeks, and the other group did normal routines as a control. And they found they would survey the groups of students as well as take saliva samples to measure cortisol levels throughout the process. They found that those that were doing more physical activity, and not just like exercise, but like problem solving, teamwork, all that stuff, not sitting at a desk. When they did that, they both self-reported less stress, self-reported less anxiety, but physically, their system, their biological system was producing less stress, correlating with their cortisol levels. So it was like quick intervention. This is an easy thing to do. And it was clearly better than the students that were not doing any of that intervention. So great. Physical activity, good for students with ADHD.
What's wrong with that? Telling kids who have ADHD, suggesting they go for a run every few days? I feel like that's so easy.
And working with people too. It's so easy. You could go for a run. You could play a team sport. You could literally just go to the park with your friends and throw a Frisbee around. Like, it's low barrier, right? But one of the interesting parts about this study was that they tracked them for 3 months after the intervention had happened. And they basically found that the entire effect faded. Meaning, if you don't keep doing the intervention, then you are losing the effect and your stress levels go back to the same and your anxiety goes back up. So this informs clearly that, on a home front, parents should be working with their children, with their adolescents, to have something more consistent. But I think this also speaks to school, the way we set up school, and ensuring that groups of students like this, or just all students, have access to not let what would not seem like an academic thing, have access to physical activity, problem solving with your friends, just doing things that wouldn't seem like sitting at a lecture and listening to a math lesson. That's not always going to be the right thing to do in a school setting. You need to get them doing physical things as well.
Cool. Well, I want to jump to our last story here. You are an astronomer. You are a physicist. You are an astrophysicist. You study astrophysical sciences at York University. Is there more ways to say that? This is an astronomy story, and and it's a really cool one. And I suppose people who are like conspiracy theory, whatever, could say it's proof of aliens, which is kind of fun. Obviously, it's not. But there was a time when humanity had no satellites in the atmosphere. Like not that long ago. When did the Russians first launch something up there? Like the 40s, the 50s, something like that?
57? 1957?
Sputnik wasn't?
Yep.
Yeah. Now, were governments testing things that were classified before then? Who knows? And that could come into play in a second. But we do have photographs of the sky, old photographs on like silver plates or whatever, like on photographic plates.
On glass, yeah.
On glass. So we have historical photographs of the sky. We have amazing computer technology to analyze those historical photographs of the sky. And we had a time when there was allegedly no satellites in the sky. So some researchers took these old photographs, looked at them, and tried to look for things streaking across the sky, like the International Space Station would be an example, stuff that couldn't be stars. And what they found was kind of interesting.
They found that there are some. That's the crazy thing. So this is from a researcher out of Sweden, Dr. Beatrice Villarol, who's doing some interesting stuff. She focuses mostly on the Palomar survey. The Palomar survey happened out of the Palomar Observatory just outside of San Diego. Big, huge observatory that was built a long, long time ago. And it decided back in like the 40s that it wanted to take an entire image snapshot of the sky. So you do it in small sections. You point your telescope, you take a picture, you move it over a bit, you take another picture, and over a few years, you'll get an entire shot of the sky. And they did that, and they did it multiple times. So we had multiple images of the entire sky at once. And what that means is that you can go to a region of the sky and compare what's there over 5, 6, 7 nights over a period of maybe 5 years or something like that. And they find things. They find what we call transients. Astronomers call them transients. A transient thing is a thing that appears in one image but is not there in another image. It could be a physical thing like a blinking star, like a supernova. Or it could be an artifact of photography, like an accident, just a crappy data. Or in modern day, it could be a satellite that's flying through your image. And the question that this researcher had was, do those happen in old ones? And they do. They found transients in old images before things were in the sky, some of which they found hard to explain. But then this researcher went a little bit further and said, are there any things on the ground here on Earth that we were doing during the 40s and 50s when this survey was happening that might have caused these transients? And so they looked into nuclear testing, above ground nuclear testing. And they found, this is a really interesting result that should get us thinking, but it's not necessarily a causation. So we'll get to that in a second. They found that when you have a transient in the data of that survey I was talking about, that is, you're 45% more likely to be within a day of a nuclear test.
Could have been rocks or some material that got ejected or something like that.
So that's my question. This is what I tell my students all the time at school, is that to do science well, you need to have a good physical mechanism to cause the thing that you're trying to describe. And so we have a flash of light that looks like a star in an astrophysical image from a telescope. And how does a nuclear test cause a flash of light that looks like a star? Personally, I don't have a good answer for that at the moment. But the fact that they line up, that they correlate, is telling us that there's questions we should answer in that direction. So I think they found an interesting result. They've just got no physical mechanism that I think is plausible at the moment. Of note, though, David, if you're a fan of aliens, is that they also found that this correlated with the number of UFO reports that happen. So nuclear test happens, and then an actual significant chance that there's going to be more UFO reports and more transients in the astronomical data. So I think that at least some of the transients and at least some of the UFO reports may have been caused by nuclear testing by those big nations back in the 40s and 50s.
We just don't know the mechanism yet, but it's pretty cool. And it's also cool that they really checked it for dust or errors in the photographic plates to really rule out whether it was just nonsense in the photographic data. Jesse, thank you for coming on the show. It is always a pleasure having you here.
I love being here. Thanks for that.
Jesse Rogerson is a professor at York University in Toronto, Canada. Coming up, a brand new bill that would make it illegal for you to marry your AI. What? You mean lawmakers won't let me marry a robot? After the break, our foreign correspondent, Tony Five, will be here to discuss this high-tech romance crackdown.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
When it comes to what your family eats and drinks, you know your choices matter. You're the expert because you know what fits your life. And getting it right starts with good information. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing more information about our ingredients at goodtoknowfacts.org. No spin, no judgments, just the facts straight from the experts for more than 140 beverage ingredients. Visit goodtoknowfacts.org.
About the government shutdown in the U.S. Imagine you worked for the tax man, the IRS, but furthermore, imagine you were a tax man, a lawyer for the IRS. What would you be doing right now while the government is shut down? Kicking up your legs, catching up on soap opera episodes, or starting a hot dog stand? That is what we'll discuss here with foreign correspondent Tony Five from London, England. Tony, welcome in.
David, a lover of the IRS and a lover of hot dog, David. This story is right up my street, my friend.
Are you a hot dog fan? Do you even have hot dogs in the UK?
We have hot dogs. I think you've always told me whenever I come to New York to avoid those yellow and blue stalls, but they're kind of iconic, right? You don't really know if they're pork or not. But I guess, yeah, I do like a hot dog, actually.
It's because they're usually beef is why you don't know if they're pork or not. But, I like a street hot dog. But I like one from a vendor that has multiple vendors, because if it's a one-off, you never can trust it, right? I mean, who knows what's going on. I have a weak stomach. My girlfriend has a stronger stomach, so she enjoys street meat of all varieties. I'm not against it. I think it's delicious, but I get a stomachache so easily. I got to go with like a chain, basically.
So who would you go for? Who's your hot dog of choice?
I mean, they don't sponsor this show, but maybe we could pick one up. I do like a Nathan's. I got to say, Nathan's is a popular one. Yeah, that would be my go-to, I would say.
Nathan's. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that the terminology of serving a hot dog is slinging a hot dog. Did you know that?
I did not. I'm not a hot dog aficionado, okay?
Well, I am. But and this guy is a lawyer for the IRS. He writes tax regs, and he's wearing a suit and tie, working his hot dog stand. And his motto is the only honest ripoff in DC.
I like that this guy was a tax lawyer for the government, but his dream was to, I mean, like some people dream big. Like I want to be the UN General Secretary. I want to be in the most famous band in the world and get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I want to make $1 billion. This guy's dream, hot dog cart. And he's living his dream because of the government shutdown.
Well, he got the permits because apparently he has to have all the permits in September. And then he was furloughed, I think, because of what's happening in the US in October, I believe. And now he's doing it 7 days a week. And he said, even if he does go back to work, he's still going to do it sort of at the weekends and, in his spare time, which, you know what? Good luck to the guy. He's living his dream, David. Now, his dream is not our dream, but his dream is good.
I don't know. I think it kind of sounds fun. I mean, there's got to be a real slog to it. Like, there's got to be a real grind to running a food cart that isn't easy. But talking to strangers who are coming up to you on the street and excited about eating hot dogs, it does seem, and maybe it's only fun for 5 minutes. Maybe, to do it every day is a horrible job. I don't know. But it does seem kind of fun. Like, I kind of get why this guy who's a tax lawyer, which I got to say, doesn't sound like the most interesting career one could choose, would have a lot of fun doing this.
Well, he reckons he sells about 50 hot dogs a day, so he's obviously not doing it for the money. I'm assuming he makes a lot of money for the IRS, and this is kind of a folly for him, so he's quite happy to kind of do it and enjoy his life. It's kind of like what we do, right? Like just doing something for the love of doing it. But he mentioned things, David, that I have no idea about in this report. RC Cola. Never heard of it. Don't know what it is.
It's a type of cola, like a Coke or a Pepsi. It's a type of cola. It's just a different brand. It's pretty good, I guess. I mean, I don't really think it is any different than the others, but I'm not a big cola lover.
Okay, moon pies.
Ah, the moon pie. I feel like that is definitely something you do not have in the U.S. We had something similar in Canada called the Joe Louis, but it's basically like a chocolate-covered, round Twinkie with cake on either side and icing in the middle. It's delicious. I mean, it's total junk, but it's delicious.
Never had a moon pie. And again, we don't have RC Cola. When I first read it, I thought he was talking about a remote control cola. Like somehow this cola bottle was on wheels and it was like a really trick thing that they did for hot dog vendors. But yeah, fair enough. I mean, your country and the country surrounding you is absolutely crazy at the moment. So brilliant.
I think it's like a Southern thing, moon pies, because I don't know that I've ever seen one sold in a store, and I've only had one when I was like in the South on vacation. I've never seen one growing up in Canada, but definitely we have confections that are like the moon pie. We have the half moon, but that's not covered in chocolate. That's just a half cake with icing or marshmallowy filling, and then look at us, just debating international snacks.
Yeah. But I mean, the best thing he's got on his menu, the shirt off my back, David.
That is something he does on his back. And he just has two types of hot dogs. One was called the correct hot dog, which I assume...
No, the only choice, correct hot dog and drink. So it's the only choice, meaning it's his hot dog with sauerkraut
and mustard.
And mustard, right? And he doesn't like it any other way. So he's almost dictator-like in his hot dog selling. You briefly went over it, but the shirt off my back is on his menu, and it means if you give him $1,000, he will strip half naked, take the shirt off his back, give it to you, call it a day, and walk home.
I feel like a major media outlet covered this guy. I feel like people are going to go to his hot dog cart and buy the shirt off his back for $1,000.
I mean, good for him. He's a tax lawyer, and he sounds quite smart about it, doesn't he?
And in case you're wondering, when I say major media outlet, I'm not talking about our coverage on this show.
We are not major, we are not media, and we're barely an outlet, David.
But we test amazingly well in the demographic of my mother when she decides to turn her radio on. We do amazing in that demographic.
And held comatose victims in hospitals with a broken radio.
That too. We test amazing in all demographics that involve broken radios set to this station on at the time that we're on. Test amazingly. It's almost like they never shut it off. Our next story is a fun one, although it does make you think. The state of Ohio is attempting, I think there's a law that lawmakers want to pass, we'll see what happens, to ban AI marriages.
Yes.
But when mommy and daddy love each other, they can get married. How come when mommy and the cyborg love each other, they can't get married? This is a real damaging law for robot rights, I would say.
Okay, is it a joke? Because the guy's called Thad Claggett, right? Fake name. The House bill, David, is called 469. 100% this is not true. And he mentions Optimus Prime in his official sort of statement, saying, we're not talking about Optimus Prime walking down the aisle to Here Comes the Bride. That's not what we're talking about here.
Then what are they talking about?
So he was kind of like, there's a legal loophole, and it's basically to stop AI from taking on sort of jobs and roles and responsibilities that a spouse would have, right? So you have it there like power of attorney, so being able to make medical decisions on behalf of the partner. I know I have it
Who
for my
would
mum.
consult a chatbot to make medical decisions about their partner? Actually, don't answer that question, because I'm sure there's people out there that would.
Well, they are, because, I mean, think about it like this, right? You don't have somebody, right? If you don't have a partner, you don't have family, and you do want something to make these decisions on your behalf, and you think, well, something sentient, and they believe that AI might be able to do it. There are people that take AI medical advice deadly seriously, and to the point where chatbots have been tied actually to suicides and sort of really sort of criminal behavior where they've said stuff like that. But yeah, I can imagine that that's why he's doing it, and it's meant to close that loophole.
Well, when mommy loves a cyborg, she can no longer marry him in Ohio. And I do agree this story sounds strange because the politician responsible for trying to pass this law is named Thad Claggett.
David, I would like to reach out to Thad and to all the Claggett family to come on this show. If we can't get Thad on this show, why bother have this show, David?
I agree. I mean, he looks pretty normal, I guess. He's like middle-aged white guy, glasses, he's a Republican, whatever. But Thad Claggett, he is a representative in Ohio who does not want a robot deciding when you should live, which you know what? I got to agree with the guy on this point.
I agree with him, and I'd gladly talk to him about AI and the benefits of marrying my toaster.
Tony, earlier last week, you mentioned wanting to have academics on who just published the most obscure, weirdest research. So after the break, we're going to talk about something that is real in psychology and physiology called synchronization. And that basically is like when you and your friends are in the same room and you're really on the same page. I know people say as a joke, we're, quote, on the same wavelength.
Yes.
But your heartbeat can actually synchronize with the people around you. And someone has done research on how much this happens relative to your socioeconomic status. So I could not think of a more obscure scientific paper. So when we come back, you and I are going to discuss that with the paper author. Synchronized heartbeats based on socioeconomic status of romantic partners.
Yeah, heartbeat about your paycheck. Love it.
Tony 5 will be back with that in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Broadcasting intimate details and useless information from an undisclosed location in New York City. The Last Show with David Cooper.
I am here with foreign correspondent Tony 5. Tony, welcome to the program.
David, always a pleasure, my friend. I think it is academic hour, isn't it, David?
It is. We're about to talk to an academic expert. But before we introduce her, Tony, have you ever thought that you and I are so close, we work together so closely that our heartbeats might beat at the exact same time?
I remember last year when we went to a Chinese restaurant, we both burped at the same time. Do you remember that? That was a wonderful afternoon. Yeah, I remember that.
I certainly do. But let's get a little more serious because there's a research paper now that says that certain types of people who have close connections can have synchronized heartbeats. And we're here with someone who worked on that research. Her name is Dr. Claudia Haase. She's a psychology professor at Northwestern University. Claudia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So this notion that people who are closely bonded, connected, emotionally close, their heartbeats would synchronize. How is this something that you end up deciding to research in?
You know, we always use metaphors like being on the same wavelength with someone or kind of like vibing with someone. And that's something that always really interested me. And it turns out that these are not just metaphors, that there's a reality to it, our heartbeats. And also, by the way, many other bodily processes can synchronize when people are connecting with each other.
That is fascinating. So it basically developed from a metaphor, a kind of a saying. Because I don't know, you're the academic, you'd probably know better than me, but there's a thing where females in a certain sort of close-knit space can have their menstrual cycles they can match up. And when I read your paper, I thought, that's fascinating. But what got you from that, like a biological function like that, to like heartbeats and then including, the socioeconomic sort of variables?
Yes, and by the way, this research on menstrual cycles synchronizing in females, this is one of the very early ways of how researchers have studied this kind of synchronization, and then they discovered, oh, it's not just menstrual cycles, it's heartbeats, and it's also brain waves. And I think that it seems like it, given that when we connect with others, we may start to think similarly and we may start to behave similarly. And he talked about how you're both burping at the same time. And these are all phenomena that probably...
Oh, could you include us in your research notes? Because that would be fantastic.
Please.
Could you cite us? You could cite us in that. That'd be great.
Most definitely. We are always looking for research participants. So you're super welcome to visit in our lab. And we were just so struck by the fact that the heartbeat is this really important internal signal. Some people have a real ability to actually detect their own heartbeat. I don't know if you can do that. And we were just so curious about this kind of like rhythm that is basically a constant from the moment we are born, actually even earlier until we take our very last breath, as a window into understanding the physiology and these physiological connections between people.
So that like anecdotal, like not scientific feeling that I'm, quote, on the same wavelength as someone, that can actually happen physiologically.
It's a real thing, David.
So tell me about the kinds of people that are likely to have their heartbeats in sync with one another.
So this is a huge field of research, and we're not the only ones really interested in figuring out what is physiological linkage and where does it happen and why and how. In this particular study, our most recent work, we were really interested in how privilege gets under the skin. And we were studying couples here from the Chicago area, from all walks of life. Some were making a lot of money and others were actually living below the poverty line. And there's a long line of literature suggesting, like social connection is always important, but it comes really essential when you don't have a lot of resources. In those environments, social connections become a resource and a refuge. And so we were really curious if we would find in these couples from lower socioeconomic backgrounds a greater tendency for their heart rates to synchronize. And this was the question we had when we entered the study, and we were just amazed to see that there was a physiological signature there along those lines.
The passionate way you speak about it, it's actually kind of inspiring me because I think you're right. When you haven't got a lot, you can kind of crave and attract yourself to your partner because you haven't got a lot. And you can also see people that earn a lot of money because they've got almost an excess of everything. You can kind of neglect your partner, right? You can kind of say, well, actually, it's almost disposable, like disposable income, maybe even a disposable relationship, right?
Maybe.
I think you're spot on. And there's many people who are way smarter than me and our research team, although I think we're pretty smart, but people who have really shown these effects at the level of feelings and behaviors and thoughts, that people become more attuned to social connection if there's not a lot of money to go around.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is something about when you have just a lot of money to throw at a problem, maybe you don't necessarily depend that much on other people.
That not needing other people like filters all the way down to the way that our hearts can synchronize with our partners?
It's really important also to not oversimplify these results and to also realize, like we took a lot of effort to recruit couples from the Chicagoland area, but this is just one study and one sample, right? So we're definitely looking forward to and hoping that other people will take up this research, expand it, replicate it, and see this is also hold in other countries and cultures with perhaps less socioeconomic inequality. The US is a context where the differences between the haves and the have-nots are particularly stark. And so we're just really curious to see if the hint that we're providing with this research can get other people inspired to follow up on what we're doing.
Well, I think it's fantastic. Like, I know you had quite a small sample size. It was 48 couples. They were all heterosexual, all based in sort of the Chicago area. So it would be fantastic to do it in a different area, something like, a tribal area in Africa versus a first world, a second world country, a different sexual relationships between people that are married, maybe people that are not even married, gay couples. You can see that this research go on, but even now, you speaking about it, I don't understand. How does it affect the heart? Like, does it affect other organs, the kidney, my ears? Like, I want to know how it affects rabbits from different social economic statuses.
And actually, I kind of want to move away from this socioeconomic stuff. I know that's your paper, but I am just curious, what are the ways in which our bodies can synchronize, like, with specific examples as a general thing that psychologists observe?
The other ways, well, there is a lot, our brains are these really complex and complicated organs, and they are also producing waves that you can actually measure and visualize on something called an EEG. And the synchronization of brain waves, for instance, between parents and children, while they're playing with each other or maybe watching a movie together, you can also actually detect synchronizations in brain waves. And since, Tony, you asked about other countries and other cultures, we've often gotten this question of, do you also synchronize with your coworkers? And this is the question you came in with initially, right? How do the people around you affect you and in ways that you may not necessarily even be aware of?
Well, Claudia, I think me and David could be your guinea pigs for the next, your part 2 of this study. I remember once, about 4 years ago, I took David to a Vietnamese restaurant and we both had bowel movements in synchronization. So possibly that could be the fundamental element of your study and we could just move it from there. What do you think?
I am so thrilled about this idea. I can't wait for you to show up. And you may be joking, but I actually really, really think that this is a scientific possibility. It just deserves further study.
Anecdotally, like when me and my girlfriend both come home, we both have to go at the exact same time. So maybe we're synchronized. I don't know.
I think there's a really good chance that you are.
I love the fact that you just developed this study from almost like a metaphor, and it's become something that you can actually sort of prove. It's amazing. So I wish you the best in your research, and hopefully we'll speak to you again when you've found some other animal and some other bodily function that synchronizes.
Claudia, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for having fun with us and sharing a little bit of scientific stuff about your research as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Claudia Haase is a psychology professor at Northwestern University. Up next, it's Wednesday, which means Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. We will unpack the weight of parents' expectations on their children, the things they project, like forcing kids into a certain career because that's what the parent wanted. That discussion after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. When your therapist won't take your calls anymore, there's always the last show with David Cooper.
It is my favorite time of the week when we do the wrong thing on the wrong day with the right person. It's Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. Therapist, social worker Gary Direnfeld is here. Gary, it's Friday on a Wednesday. Halloween is today on a, I don't know, dates are confusing. Happy Halloween, my friend.
Happy Halloween. And you were looking a little scary earlier, but,
Oh, ugly? Because I'm my goiter?
Nah, you look good. You look good.
I got a zit on my head. Halloween, you're going trick-or-treating with the grandkids?
Yes.
Ooh.
Very excited about that. It's been a number of years, where our visits kind of line up with Halloween. So, and I love Halloween. It is one of my favorite holidays. When our son was a little boy, ours was the house that had somebody scary answering the door. That was me, dressed like a scary, crotchety person with the music playing, and I would leap out. And, you had to be mindful. If they were the little ones, I wouldn't do that. But the older kids scared them, and they loved it. I love Halloween.
I do too. I just realized I got to get a matching couples costume with my girlfriend. This is going to be a fun few days. I'm going to be the lizard from Magic School Bus, and she's going to be Miss Frizzle, who is my dream woman. Miss Frizzle is the full package. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't. I am not familiar with this.
It was a kid's cartoon called Magic School Bus, and the school bus could shrink and maybe time travel, and the teacher of the kids was a redhead, which Miranda is, and yeah, dream woman. Okay,
You're not going for the nurse's costume and you're the patient or something like that.
No. Miss Frizzle is, she's dressed, her dress is not revealing, but she's smart. She's got a magic school bus and she's a redhead. How can you complain about that? Now, before we get to our topic, which is parents' expectations of children, in particular, like parents who expect their kids to have a certain job, take a certain direction in university or college, that kind of thing. I want to stay here on Halloween. I find dancing to be vulgar and uncomfortable, and I kind of associate. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's embarrassing, flailing my body around with no rhythm. I actually had someone on the show earlier in the week who was last week, who was a professor who studied that when white people are told that they can't dance because they're white, they dance worse, and that's how I feel. Regardless.
Billy Crystal, the Jewish man's overbite. Do you remember that in when Harry met Sally?
No.
There he is dancing, and he's and he's got his teeth, upper teeth, kind of on his lower lip. That overbite thing, like looking so cool. Yeah, he called it the Jewish man's overbite when he's.
I call my dance moves the Jew shuffle. I just flail around like Elaine in Seinfeld.
Yeah, another good reference.
I am going, and also, side note, I kind of associate my comfort in discotheques and dancing environments, weddings, clubs, whatever, with alcohol, because I used to drink to deal with the existential terror that I find overcomes me when I have to dance. I have agreed, in the name of being a good sport, to go line dancing with Miranda, my girlfriend, and a couple friend on Halloween. And I don't know what
do you have cowboy boots?
I have, no, but I have a 10-gallon hat.
I hope it fits and doesn't just cover your head.
It does fit. It's huge. I used to be in a country band. Fun fact about me. So I have it from. Yeah,
Come on.
I know, right?
One of these things is not like the other.
I am a Jew and I have a motorcycle and I was in a country band. I'm not a good Jew, I guess. I play steel guitar. You know that
it's like,
whiny.
what is wrong with this picture?
Me. That's at the line dance. But that whiny guitar sound, like, you know the song by Tammy Wynette, Stand By Your Man, where it goes, Stand By Your Man. And then there's that whiny guitar that goes, da-da. That's the instrument I used to play in a band. Anyway, I'm completely, this is a stream of consciousness odyssey.
I am loving this. You know, we're pulling back the curtain on David Cooper.
All right. For all listeners who have no idea who I am, who we are, and why they would want to listen to this, we're going to get to parents' expectations of children and what you need to know about it in a moment. But how do I deal with line dancing? Do I just white knuckle it? Like, what do I do?
Just throw yourself into it. And here's the thing. As self-conscious as any of us are doing what we're not comfortable doing, you're not the only one.
Yeah.
And not everyone's going to be looking at you. You're looking at you because you're so self-conscious, but you're just, everyone's on their own radar, not others.
Okay. Everyone's self-conscious of themselves and too preoccupied worrying what other people think to think anything about you.
There you go.
And even if they do, it's very temporary. It's like for 2 seconds they might judge you, but they're back to judging themselves. Honest
to goodness. Get over yourself and, just enjoy. And when we can laugh at ourselves, David, when we don't have to take ourselves so seriously, we can relax into the moment.
Okay. I'm either going to be wearing my 10-gallon hat or I'm going to be dressed as the dinosaur from Magic School Bus. I don't know if I can get a costume in order in 2 days, but we'll see. All right, our topic today. There are parents and friends and people who and spouses, but let's focus on parents, who put expectations on others, children, to have a certain career path. You see it with sports. There's famously, like in television shows, where the kid doesn't want to be the football player and the parent, is the father's dream. But this plays in many subtle little ways for a lot of families. That's your cue to speak. That's me throwing to you. I can keep talking, but I'm throwing to you.
Dum-dum. Thanks, David. Yes. So why don't we start with the little kids and sports parents, where the parent is living out their dream through the child. We call this projection. If I liked it, you're going to like it. Some parents want their kids to, in a sense, be a mini-me. It's their way of feeling connected to their own child. I've worked with families where a parent has wanted a kid to participate in a particular sport or activity, and the child has absolutely neither interest nor aptitude. And so we want parents to be mindful that just because you enjoyed it, just because you may have excelled at it, it doesn't necessarily reflect the interests and abilities of the kid. And then, of course, we have those kids, you'll say, what do you want to do when you grow up? And the kid will rhyme off this profession about which they have no comprehension. But that, too, is a reflection of the parents. Over my 40 years of practice, 42 years, I don't know where the time has gone, David, I've met with so many adults who, even if successful in their profession, just can't stand it. they're miserable.
Yeah. My grandfather was an engineer. My father was an engineer. They were both civil. I studied software. I felt a lot of pressure, although it gave me a great career. I'm glad I did it, but it kind of played out in little ways, like this feeling that the parents would be more proud of you if you did that. So it can even play out in not direct words. Like it can play out in, rather than the parents saying, you have to study this, it's, oh, we'll be so proud of you if you study this. It can create a lot of pressure,
Listen, I remember my own upbringing. I think we're almost out of time, though, so maybe we'll bring that in after.
We are, but give us a little taste of what we're going to hear up next. You do the tease, Gary. This is me throwing to you.
I dropped out of high school.
Wow.
Do you want to know what happened next?
You ended up on this show?
Precisely.
All right, Gary Direnfeld is here. We are talking expectations of parents on children. It's Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday, broadcasting's only mental health segment intended for Wednesdays that airs on Thursdays. We'll be back in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The Last Show with David Cooper, where we apply quantum mechanical psychoanalytical astrotherapy to your problems.
It is Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. Parents' expectations of children, causing them to make decisions about their life, like what to study, what to do for work, who to marry. Not so good. Can leave kids unhappy, and that's what we're talking about with Gary Direnfeld, well-known high school dropout.
So here we are. We're both Jewish. I have an eldest brother who became a doctor. The middle brother became a lawyer.
Oh, no.
And then there was me.
It's like out of a 90s sitcom right there.
Honest to God. And then there was me. We can name it that. So I dropped out of high school. I got my grade 12 at a time in Ontario where you needed grade 13 to get into university. Did not make my parents happy. I dropped out, started selling shoes, eventually met a lovely gal who convinced me to return to school. Long story short, I went back to York University as a mature student. So I had my grade 12. I was 21 years of age. They would accept me. And I enrolled in psychology. My dad was thrilled that I was returning to university. Thrilled. And then he says, what courses are you taking? And there it was. Psychology, sociology, humanities, philosophy. And he looks at me and says, where are the sciences? Where's the math? How are you, what are you doing? He was angry with me, although returning to school. Said, you're going to blow university the way you blew high school.
Oh boy, that's what a great father.
Oh, look, he was coming from a good place, but man, it was a brutal delivery. He passed away literally a month before I graduated.
Oy. Now I feel bad for saying what a great father sarcastically. This is not a fun story.
No, look. I don't care who you are out there. We all have our difficult experiences and things that shape us, quite frankly. But he passed away a month before I graduated. Having said that, he did see the trajectory of my life through university and was pleased that I was attending and enjoying what I was doing. But the message to the listener is, because just as you have, in a sense, recoiled, David, at my story, when you hear how impactful these situations are, I want parents to be mindful of that with their own kids. That was something that I carried with me. Maybe I still do. In truth. But we want our kids to be, in a sense, psychologically free. And the way we do that is we play to the child's strengths, to the child's interests. So many times I meet with parents whose kids have behavioral problems. And one of the things to look at is what we call the goodness of fit between the parent's expectations and the child's capacities and interests. When there isn't that goodness of fit, it affects the child. Children can't sit there and go, well, Mummy, or Daddy, I really don't like having to go to basketball, football, hockey, soccer, music, dance, art, whatever it is. They don't, Daddy, when you make me do that, it makes me terribly. No, kids just act up.
Yeah.
They're going to be late for where they have to go because they really don't want to be there. Right? So for the parent to be mindful of that, watch their projections, and instead, what is my kid's interest? Now, when it comes to activities, some parents are of the mind, if I've signed you up, you must complete it. Mm-hmm. And other parents are of the mind, nah, you tried it. It's kind of like a smorgasbord. You've tasted it. You didn't like it. Let's move on to the next. I think there has to be a happy medium between that. You and me, David, as adults, if we engage in an activity that once we're in it, we say, for whatever reasons, this sucks. We have the capacity to say, not going anymore. Nah, I stopped, didn't like it. We have to have a similar attitude towards our kids. We don't need to necessarily shoehorn them in to something that doesn't fit.
Quitting hockey was the hardest thing I'd ever had to do. I was 13. My dad was not happy. He was the coach of the team. He continued to coach the team, I believe, with me sitting out for like the last quarter of the season. He was really adamant that we all play hockey because he loved it. And, it's a silly example, and I ended up being able to quit. But, this comes up with marrying people, which I think is wild to me. Like the pressure to marry a certain type of person or someone from the same background as you. I mean, I guess maybe it ends well sometimes, but it seems to me it never ends well.
Well, our son is in a cross-cultural, faith marriage. And I got to tell you, our daughter-in-law, we are crazy mad in love with her because she's just a wonderful person. And I couldn't imagine suggesting to him that he consider anyone else or that he must choose within his faith that he was grown up with. These are his decisions. And as parents, we say, what do we want for our kids? Typically, the answer is to be happy and to be able to have at least just enough money to get through life somewhat comfortably.
My parents weren't always that way, but I feel like they are now, and I get along with them great now. I do think their primary goal for their kids at age almost 80 is for their kids to be happy, but they were kind of like pressure to live a certain way, pressure to be a certain way growing up, and I didn't get along with them,
Yeah, and honestly, it's not that uncommon. I am thrilled to hear that somehow or other things shifted for your family, because it allows you now as an adult to have the kind of relationship with your parents that you may have wished for when you were a much younger person. And I stress to the adults, to the parents of adult children, you may still feel a disconnect with your kids over this issue. And I want to suggest to you, it's never too late to address it. It's never too late to apologize. It's never too late to take responsibility.
It's never too late to back off with the pressure.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is, I think like the first step in me getting along with my parents.
Exactly. And, if you do that, if you are that parent and you do back off with the pressure, acknowledge that maybe you didn't have to do what I thought you had to do, you could have done differently. Or maybe, I can show some pride in you for your having chosen what you wanted to do at this point. That is an emotional, psychological gift from the parent to that adult child. Even if the adult child themselves is aging and that parent is still around, at any point in our life, that can feel freeing. That can enable repair to a relationship. And so I just want the adults, the parents, to appreciate their impact and to be mindful that you're raising a separate human being.
Gary, what a expletive pleasure it was to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, David.
Gary Direnfeld is a social worker, a therapist, and this concludes Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. Up next, they sense our touch. They track our sleep. They even learn our faces. I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about your smartphone. And a lot of folks see them as emotional beings that know us a little too well. And that's a problem. Details in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Exploring both interstellar and interpersonal space-time continuums. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Our smartphones, they don't just connect us, they respond to us. They read our faces and unlock, they track our movements, they vibrate to our touch, they even adapt to our moods. But is your cell phone a tool or just like an evil companion training you to never look away? That is what we'll discuss here with Dr. Stephen Monteiro, who's a professor of communication studies at Concordia University in Montreal, Canada. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, David.
You wrote that smartphones have become sort of like animated beings in our lives, not just tools. What does that mean? How can a machine behave in a way that feels almost alive to us?
Well, what I found is that when we look at these devices, there are all sorts of things that these devices do. So these technological features that are built into them, that if you look across these different kinds of features, they start to produce a kind of animated relationship with us that sort of changes depending on the way we behave, the way we interact with them.
Is it our fault for becoming addicted? Like that feeling I get when I walk out of my home, I'm already in the street, and then I realize there's nothing in my pocket, and I feel somehow empty, or somehow like something is wrong. I forgot my phone at home. Is it my fault for being addicted, or were these devices designed to create that interaction?
Well, what I would argue is that they're designed to be comforting, right? And a big issue with this is that when we tend to think about how dependent we are on our devices and how much we use our devices, that oftentimes we tend to focus on the things that we access through the devices. So social media is a big one, but also more and more our interactions with AI chatbots, gaming sites or apps, these sorts of things. And my argument is that while those things definitely keep us on our phones, the way that the phone is designed as well is something that keeps us turning back to it, that it's this comforting presence in our lives, even before we actually access anything through the apps or through the internet.
Well, let's talk about that comforting presence. You compare like phones to having the gestures of phones to being ones of friendship or familiarity. I'm talking about things like facial recognition or even haptic feedback, which feels like a person's touch. Say more about that. Like, how do these subtle cues trick our brains into thinking our phones know us?
So, yeah, I'll work with the two examples that you gave. So one of the things with facial recognition is we oftentimes have facial recognition locks on our phone to unlock our phone. And so just that simple process of you pick up your phone and your phone immediately opens up to you. But then if someone else picks up your phone, the person next to you, that it doesn't react, right? Now, on the one hand, that's sort of a security mechanism. But what it also does is psychologically, it can produce this sense that, oh, my phone knows me, my phone doesn't know other people. Just in the same way that I would say when we encounter friends or acquaintances in the street sometimes, that we have a certain sort of street face that we have, and then when we see them, our face changes, right, to recognize that familiarity between us. So that's one of them. The other one that you talked about with haptic feedback, yeah, exactly, is that with vibration, one of the things that we have on the phone is the phone will vibrate in different ways to give us different signals. But another thing that's fairly common, and maybe some of the people listening to this will have experienced this, is phantom vibration with the phone, which means that, the phone may be on your desk or on your table, or on the sofa next to you, and you feel in your pocket, let's say, you feel the phone vibrating when the phone's not actually there. And as I said, that's something that's relatively common. And what it tells us is that the way our brains have been trained to sense the presence of the phone or be aware of the phone, as I said, even when the phone is not there.
Is that not dissimilar to like a phantom social cue? Like I think I catch a look on my girlfriend's face that she's upset. I react to that look even if she's not upset. Is it similar to that?
It's similar I would say it's similar in the way that as we interact with other beings, we change our behavior slightly, they change our behavior slightly, and we pick up different cues, right? Like a certain look on your friend's face or your girlfriend's face might be different when you have a similar sort of look on, your parents' face or something like that. And so it's just something that is built into humans, is when we start interacting with other folks or even animals, and that we start to pick up cues and start to behave certain ways. And what's happening here, right, is that we're talking about an object that has no life. It's not living, right? It doesn't have thoughts. But because it reacts to us in certain ways, we start to feel that there's this connection. Another thing I would give an example of is touchscreen sensitivity, right? And the way that these really sort of minute gestures are picked up by the device, and the way that the interface oftentimes will sort of change shading, or like effects like rubber banding and these kinds of things give us the sense that the screen is not just this inert piece of glass, but actually is something that can expand or that can change when it feels our touch, right? And that mimics in many ways how our skin works, right? And that we can feel different types of touch, and it produces different kinds of emotions in us and that kind of thing. So any one of these, when we look at them, I would say it's not particularly problematic. It's when we look at the whole host of them, right? So even things like geolocation is another one that I've researched. Motion and audio sensing. This becomes a problem because now with motion and audio sensing, what are called awareness features, is that even when we're not deliberately interacting with the device, so when we leave it on the table next to us, it still is waiting to react to us. And so it is tracking our motion. It is listening to the sounds we make. And so this becomes even more problematic, that it's collecting that. And so sometimes what we'll get is something like a sleep score with our wellness apps, where it's been basically listening and tracking our motion all night, and then lets us know how we did with our sleeping. So it becomes more and more integrated into our lives and becomes harder and harder to sort of set aside.
So taken as a whole, if someone's listening to this and learning how they might see their phone as this being-like presence in their life and they want to unlearn that, what recommendations would you have?
Well, the first thing I would say is it's two issues. It's a dependency issue and it's a privacy issue, right? Because every time we interact with these phones are collecting data on us. So one of the things that we would do, right, one of the things that we can do, first off, is just to be aware of this, right? So being aware of how these different features work and produce this kind of dependency also already gives us a bit of a leg up. A second thing that we can do is what I recommend to folks is look at the settings on your phone and think about those settings that you need, right? And if you don't really need them or you only need them in certain situations, you can turn them off. Now, the thing to keep in mind is you can always turn those back on if you decide that you need them and you made a mistake. But go through all of those settings and figure out exactly what you need and what you don't need. Turn it off.
Well, you can learn more in Stephen's book, Needy Media, How Tech Gets Personal. That's available wherever books are sold. And Dr. Stephen Monteiro is a professor of communication studies at Concordia University. Stephen, thank you for talking to me today.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, why do people love being scared? There is strange psychology to horror movies and why you like them and why fear can actually feel good. And that is what we'll cover in a few moments.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. When the day is done, we're just getting started. The last show with David Cooper.
Why do some people love being terrified? There is a study that explores why fear can thrill you, disgust can ruin the fun, and why our taste in horror reveals things about the human mind. If you enjoy scary movies, you might want to listen up. I am here with Botond László Kiss, who's a psychology PhD student who studied just this. He's at the University of Pécs in Hungary. Botond, welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Why study why people enjoy being scared? Something most of us avoid. Why the fascination with this topic?
Our research group studies threatening and disgusting stimuli. How do we perceive these type of situations or objects, animals? And we thought that it would be interesting to have a look at this from a slightly other perspective. So because in horror we see the same or very similar stimuli. They are mostly threatening, they are mostly disgusting. Just think about the old horror movies where there were a giant spider that tried to destroy the villages. But you can see this also in the new movies as well. And we thought that it would be interesting to see why do people seek out this type of content, because in the perspective that we are actually investigating this topic, the people tend to avoid these type of situations.
But people love horror movies. How do you go about measuring how people respond to horrifying stimuli and disgusting stimuli? I'm imagining I'm a participant in your study. Do you bring me into a lab and show me videos?
Yeah. So in this case, we didn't actually do it in the lab. We did an online survey where we asked a couple of questions about how often do they watch horror movies, and a couple of questionnaires about different personality traits. And after that, they had the opportunity to watch videos. These were short clips from different horror movies. And then after they watched each of the clips, they had to rate it on 5 different dimensions. How fearful they found it, how disgusting they found it, did they enjoy it, did they find it exciting, and whether they find it real or not that real. But this is a subjective measurement of how do they perceive horror movies. What would be a more objective option is to invite them into a lab, show them these scenes, and then measure their heart rate and measure their skin conductance. That would give a much more objective measurement about the fear or disgust they actually experience during the scenes.
I'm curious about the separation between excitement and enjoyment. How are those two emotions different when it comes to fear?
Excitement could be described as a increased level of arousal. Arousal is a psychological and psychophysiological statement of our attention. So it's a higher level of alertness. While we can say that enjoyment is how we can find this whole situation. Do we find enjoyment in this? Do we actually enjoy it? Can we rephrase this whole situation as a positive thing? So I think that's the separation between the two concepts. But I can see that this is a bit hard to separate these two constructs. But maybe that's why previously most of the studies got these two things together and didn't really separate excitement and the enjoyment of the horror content.
Cool. So before we get to the why people like horror, disgust, that came up as something that maybe ruined the fun for people. They liked being scared, they liked fear, but in general, disgusting imagery, whatever that means, they didn't really enjoy on average.
Yes. That was kind of a surprise for us, but we accepted this result because if you look at fear and disgust, they are, yes, negative emotions, but they do different activations in your neural system. And fear can increase the level of your arousal, and you can find that as rewarding, while disgust is more of a parasympathetic activation, which will basically just lead to a avoiding behavior, because it's associated with when you get into contact with something which can cause you sickness. So that's a really strong emotion which helps you to avoid certain situation, to not get sick, to not get bad feelings.
Yeah, it makes sense. If I'm disgusted by food that's gone bad, I'm not going to get sick if I'm like the ancestor, like an ape or something like that.
Yeah. But it would be also logical in a way that this can also increase the enjoyment, because you can think that it's also the core part of horror, the disgust. Just think about these gore movies and the body horror movies where the goal is technically just to destroy or demolish the human body, and that's disgusting.
I'd rather not. All right. The why, given all the data that you collected, the analysis of it, why do you think people are so attracted to horror movies? What's the benefit to us? I'm stuck here because I hate horror movies. I'm the guy in the theater screaming, "Don't go there. Don't go in that house. Don't go to the attic." Basically, I can't go to a horror movie because my friends think I'm annoying. But why do people like these things?
Yeah, there are a lot of theories about that. And from our research, we can see that because there are certain people who we can say that they are adrenaline junkies. They love this rush of adrenaline from the fearful situation, and they can find it rewarding. They can find it positive. So that's why probably most of the people go to see a horror movie. But we still have other options. But we need to still discover these other theories. But from our research, this is what we can say.
Now, do your findings connect to people who have real world phobias? I used to be really scared of spiders. Like, I'm not so much anymore. I would avoid movies with any kind of spider content like the plague. If someone has a real phobia of something like blood or certain animals, would they be more likely to go to a horror movie or less likely?
Less likely. I mean, if you have a phobia, you are thinking in a way that you are planning your day to try to avoid this type of stimuli. So it doesn't matter whether it's a real one or if it's something that you will see in the movie. So definitely, if you have a phobia about spiders or blood, you will probably avoid a horror movie.
Is it mostly adrenaline junkies who enjoy horror, or are there other groups of people who are attracted to it as well?
Yeah, there are other type of people. So, for example, there are certain people who possibly use these horror movies as a coping mechanism, as if they have a bad day or if something bad happened to them, they can watch the horror movie as, at least it's not bad that for me as the actor or the character in the horror movie.
Cool. Or perhaps an escape. Well, Botond, thanks for talking to me. I appreciate you going over your research and talking about why people are interested in horror.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Botond László Kiss is a psychology PhD student at the University of Pécs in Hungary. That's our show. Thanks for tuning in. Check out the Last Show podcast at www.lastshow.pizza. That's lastshow.pizza, our website, for more info. And please do subscribe. On our podcast, some bonus online-only content that you won't hear on our radio show, so do check it out. I'm David Cooper. This was The Last Show. We will catch you tomorrow night. Hope you're getting ready for spooky Halloween.
It's okay not to be perfect with finances. Experian is your big financial friend and here to help. Did you know you can get matched with credit cards on the app? Some cards are labeled no ding decline, which means if you're not approved, they won't hurt your credit scores. Download the Experian app for free today. Applying for no ding decline cards won't hurt your credit scores if you aren't initially approved. Initial approval will result in a hard inquiry, which may impact your credit scores.
Experian.